All right, everybody, welcome to this episode of Is It Prophecy here on Israel National Radio, also known, of course, as Arut Sheva. And this show will be simulcasted on YouTube. We're going to get all our episodes up on YouTube. Very excited about that. Of course, this week starts our new scheduling. We'll be on every day, 5 p.m. in Israel and 10 in the morning on the East Coast of the United States. And we're getting this week started off with a bang. I'm a big fan of our guest. Right now, I've heard him speak personally in Israel several times. He is really, this is a treat. This is really, really special. He is the Senior Vice President of the Orthodox Union and a longtime advisor to Senator Daniel Patrick Moynihan, may rest in peace, and the Chairman of the Political Science Department at Torah College. Please bring on the program. Big welcome to Dr. David Luchins. Doctor, how are you doing out there?
Pretty well, Ari. It's a Thanksgiving morning here in America, and I'm very thankful that we have a state of Israel, that we have a friendship relationship between the United States and the state of Israel, which transcends all the variables of momentary political moments and remains strong and firm. That's one more thing to be thankful for.
Yeah, we definitely have to appreciate that we are able to come as Jews to the land of Israel and the United States. His friendship has been very long-lasting, and that's why we like to talk about things to do with the United States, because it does have an effect on Israel. Let's start first with the midterm elections a few weeks ago. Republicans get control of the Senate, which has not occurred since 2006, and control of the Congress. I want to know how, first of all, this is going to affect President Obama's end of the second term. A lot of people are talking about nothing will get done, there'll be a fight, and they're just going to stop each side from doing anything as some type of pride. I want to get your take of what you see happening in the next 2 years, the final 2 years of President Obama's presidency.
Well, there are a couple of models, and we just don't know which model is going to follow. There's one argument that says that the Republicans now are now answerable. They're now in charge. On one hand, Hillary Clinton or someone else can run against Congress now with impunity and not worry that she's about Harry Reid's feelings. On the other hand, there are a number of Republicans who, by the way, are very good senators, excellent senators from liberal-leaning states like Illinois, moderate states like New Hampshire, who are up for re-election, Pennsylvania, and they're not going to want to face the voters in 2 years with the allegation that they shut down the government or that they were obstructionists. On the contrary, they want to show they can govern, they're mature, they're adults, and we might actually have a repeat of what we had in Clinton's last two. With the Democrats took over the Congress, first Newt Gingrich threatened to close down the government, and then they turned around and they worked pretty well together under the gun, except for the little impeachment incident.
Right.
So I think two parties can work together, and I think they have worked together. And let's be optimistic. I mean, Senator McConnell of Kentucky, for example, the new majority leader, played a major role working closely with Senator Moynihan and Senator Dole and others in the compromise of the Reagan era. And I think that given the right mechanics and the right moment, maybe we'll see some good news. On the other hand, there's plenty of reason to be pessimistic.
Right. And a lot of people are a fan of having one party in the White House, a different party in the Congress, and I know that you have different political streams of what you like to see. You generally don't like to see a second-term candidate. There are some exceptions. What is your take on having one party in the White House, another party in the Congress? I
actually like it. I think it's good. I think it's good for America, and I think it's good for Jews and for Israel. Of course, both parties have to be prepared to work together and be reasonable. If I had my druthers, I'd have a Republican president and a Democratic Congress for a lot of reasons, but that's not what we have. And I think that it's foolhardy to get overly, caught up with the election season's over, the new election season is starting, and the question is, each elected official is going to be looking at their state and their concerns. And the election of 2014 was fought primarily in southern states and in very conservative states like Alaska. The Senate race of 2016 are in more moderate states, the key votes, and I think you're going to see perhaps a different flavor. And the president, going to have to either work with Congress. I mean, Ruth Bader Ginsburg should have her foolish lama. She had heart surgery yesterday.
Right.
She should be well. We shouldn't have but the Supreme Court opening. I mean, they're going to be things people are going to have to work on together.
Now, a lot of people will point to the Republicans getting Congress as an indictment against President Obama, saying it must be that the American people are not happy with them. That's why they voted Congress in as Republicans. But you seem to say more it was location of the states that had these elections. Is that why you think the Republicans got control of Congress?
Well, in 2012, when President Obama was reelected, the Democrats had 51% of the vote in the country for the House of Representatives, and they lost the House of Representatives. The Democratic voters tend to be concentrated in the big cities and in highly gerrymandered districts. This time around, the vote in the House, the Democrats had 49.6% of the vote in the House of Representatives. They still lost it by a huge margin because of these districts. I think that the President Obama definitely was an anchor around the neck of Democrats running in what you might call right-of-center states or southern states. He's an anathema to a big chunk of the electorate, and the turnout was not as in non-presidential years, the turnout goes down. It stays high among older white voters, stays high among conservative voters, and quite frankly, the president was a definite liability to the Democratic candidates in those states.
Now, do you anticipate that
he won't be around? He won't be in 2016. He'll be as big a factor as George W. Bush was in the Senate race of 2008. In other words, none.
Okay, so, and do you anticipate that any laws will quickly try to be passed before the new Congress comes in January, because that would tilt more to the Democrats? Will they try to pass anything quickly in the next month or so?
Well, to pass something in Congress, you need two houses of Congress.
Right.
So there's nothing that's going to happen unless the two parties agree on it. Now, there's a tax bill package right now being negotiated, which the White House, in my humble opinion, properly has objected to. It's $400 billion of tax cuts for corporate corporations and the wealthy, very little here for the middle class. And I think there'll be negotiations. I think those tax cuts will go through. I think there'll be some sort of a deal, and that could be the start of something good. I mean, I'm actually a little bit optimistic. I'm a big believer in divided government. I think the most creative and the best times in the last 30, 40 years in Congress, and I served on the Democratic side. Of course, I served as a Democratic senator, who worked for two Republican presidents, and was very close with Republicans as well. But during those years, the 24 years I was with Moynihan, the Republicans controlled the Senate 16 of those years. And it worked well. The two parties worked together. And I think they can again. I don't believe that things are hopeless. When it comes to the American political system, I do not believe that those who are calling for the government shutdown over issue A or issue B really want to do that. And if they do, the voters will punish them accordingly, I think.
All right, and let's go to how the next 2 years could then affect the presidential election of 2016. Obviously, Hillary is a strong leader to run to represent the Democratic Party. Now, I remember something very vividly, a lecture you gave in 2008. The Democrats are very unique in that usually the underdog wins the primary, and the Republicans, usually it's the front runner, the guy you expect to win.
That's it. Since 1952, the Democrats have only once in a non-incumbent year failed to defeat the front runner. They almost always vote for someone no one saw coming 2-3 years before. The Republicans, with the one exception, have always nominated someone who either ran before, sometimes twice before, like Ronald Reagan or Bob Dole, or in the case of the exception is George W. Bush because of the family name.
Right.
So unless it's Jeb Bush, the rules say the Republicans are going to pick someone who ran before, and the rules say the Democrats are, as they did in 2008, to repudiate Hillary Clinton. Guess what? This could be the second time we have an exception to those rules.
Right.
These rules don't come down from Mount Sinai on tablets. These rules are caprices of political luck. I think that Senator Clinton or Secretary Clinton is going to be a very strong candidate. I also think that the right Republican can beat her. I think that, for example, a combination of Jeb Bush and Mark Stephen Kirk of Illinois would be an extremely strong Republican ticket. The problem is I'm not sure the Republican base is prepared to live with them. If the Republican base insists on nominating somebody to the right of the electorate, then they're going to have problems. Because Mrs. Clinton is going to run, as she did last time, right down the middle. She's not going to run to the left. She didn't do last time. Obama got it from the left last time.
Right.
I don't think that anyone can get it from the left this time in the Democratic Party, and therefore, if she runs at the moment, it seems that she has the nomination. But again, 2 years is forever in politics. Forever.
Now, Jeb Bush, to me, is a very interesting candidate because President George W. Bush was a very disliked president towards the end, and I know there was a lot of Republicans listening to the show. That's fine, but that's the reality. If you look at the poll numbers, you look at how he ran the Iraq War, Americans were not happy with him. Had he somehow been able to run for a third term, he would have been. I mean, he wouldn't have run. It was that bad. Won't that carry on to Jeb Bush, that stigma of what happened, even though it's not the same guy, but it's the same name, and that will be in people's minds?
Look, I'm not endorsing Governor Bush. I'm not here to say he should run or not run. I'm just saying that I think he's the kind of candidate that would be able to draw a considerable amount of independent and even Democratic voters. I think he's spoken out against the Tea Party. He's taken positions on issues that put him towards the center, and that he comes with the tradition. Again, you're right, there's some Bush baggage. The Bush baggage goes both ways. They also have enormous fundraising potential in the Republican Party, a great deal of support. And people's memories, as the years go by, you miss the person.
Right.
I know people who detested Bill Clinton, who now have nostalgia towards him. And I know Republican friends of mine who were very unhappy with George Herbert Walker Bush, and now they think he was one of the great presidents of the 20th century, especially after the last couple.
Right. People do have a different perspective after time passes. That is certainly
I'll
true.
just remind you one thing.
Sure.
President George Herbert Walker Bush had an 11% approval rating in the Jewish community at the end of his term as president. If you take a poll today among Jews, I bet you he gets a 50-60% approval rating.
Right.
President Reagan saved Arafat. Reagan recognized the PLO. Reagan tore up the agreement to share secrets with Israel, forcing Israel to hire a spy to steal the secrets they're supposed to get. And yet, Reagan today is incredibly popular in the Jewish community. Bill Clinton twisted Rabin's arm out of the socket. Rabin said that to Moynihan and myself to make concessions to Syria and to Arafat. Arafat was then Biden in his White House, and he's incredibly popular in the Jewish community. Give it a couple of years. Obama will be guest of honor at the VOA dinner.
All right, again, we're speaking with Dr. David Luchins here on Is It Prophecy on Israel National Radio. You brought this up again in 2008, talking about Jonathan Pollard saying, before Jews should be so against Obama, McCain was a number one signature, I believe, on keeping Pollard in prison. And Jonathan Pollard, it's a huge issue still in Israel, obviously. He's very sick, we're being told, in jail. And usually the last day of a president's term, he does a lot of pardons, hundreds of pardons. Any chance that President Obama pardons Pollard somehow, some way, the last day in office?
Jonathan Pollard is a tragedy. It's heartbreaking. He's been in jail way too long, and the tactics that have been used by some of the people who want to get him out have keep him in jail. 1993, President Clinton promised Senator Moynihan and Lieberman and D'Amato he would release him if he signed a letter. Rabbi Aaron Soloveitchik went to the prison. Pollard signed the letter, and then under pressure he repudiated the letter. Said what he did was legally wrong, morally heroic. He regrets the letter, and Clinton threw the key away. And that happened time after time. He was eligible for parole for 19 years. He didn't apply until a few months ago. He was rejected. It's a shame. I would be very surprised if the President of the United States, any President of the United States, were to, I think pardons got a very bad name after Mark Rich, after the Clinton incident, and George W. Bush and Obama have barely used the power of pardon ever since. The fact that Clinton apparently sold pardons for political contributions, I say apparently, and apparently made all sorts of deals, whether it was with New Square, whether it was Mark Rich, Big Green. Pardons have a very bad name. I think it's very unlikely that any president of the United States is going to use pardon power on this sort in the future.
So in that case, is there a way to get about through a different, I don't even know how, but somehow parole, if we could, as a Jewish community, maybe help in that regard with this case? Is there anything the Jewish community can do to get him freed from prison?
I don't speak. Through the years, I've had my run-ins with the Pollard people, with the Pollard group, especially with some of his strongest supporters, because besides other supporters, felt there was better ways to get him out of jail. And I just don't want to incite people and get them upset at the time. We should all be advocating for his release. I think the most important thing we can do is not to make Jonathan Pollard a political issue. I think Jonathan Pollard should be dealt with. He's entitled to apply for up to 30 years in jail, which will be next year. He's up for an automatic parole consideration. I think we should be working on getting letters to the parole board. I know that in 95, when his first parole was ready, he had a pro bono attorney named Alan Dershowitz that was prepared from very distinguished people. And for whatever reason, he refused to apply, and he fired Dershowitz and refused to work with Ted Olson, his other attorney at that time, and that was bad. I think there are people smarter than me now who do this, and I think there has to be a sustained campaign to make it clear to the parole board that he's remorseful, that he's sorry, and he's been in jail a very long time, and it's very sad. And not to say, well, he's a hero, and therefore we demand his right to be out, and we're prepared to make concessions and give back land or give back settlements to get him out, which I think is, frankly, the wrong route to go.
And well said. I mean, the most powerful thing we could do as Jewish people is dive for him, and very wise words indeed. Now, one of the things I wanted you to come on is to talk a little bit about the economy, because there's a lot of misinformation or confusion, or people in Israel, they rely on the American economy so much. Many Anglo workers work in companies based on the American economy, and there's a lot of different sides of information of what exactly the economy is like in the United States. People talk about job growth, but then people also talk about the debt. What is your assessment of the economy at this point? You see it going up? Are you scared about it?
The debt as a share of gross national product is actually down dramatically in the last 4 years, and that's good.
Okay.
It's going down. It should go down more based on the current projections. The unemployment rate is the lowest it's been since the beginning of the 21st century. The stock market is at all-time highs, but the middle class is hurting terribly. We need tax reform. We need meaningful tax reform. There's something wrong with our system where companies can use inversion and can move their official headquarters overseas and cut their American taxes dramatically. There's something wrong with the system where hedge fund managers pay lower tax rates than their secretaries. There's a lot wrong with our system, and it requires some meaningful tax reform. It requires people who want to make compromises and deals. And we have to be realistic. I mean, there's something wrong with the system where every senior gets free prescription drugs no matter what their income is, or can give away their assets. Lawrence Rockefeller once boasted that when the time comes for him to go to a nursing home, he'll go for free. Medicaid will pay for it. So he's given his entire fortune away to his children in trust funds years before. There's something wrong with that system, and everyone has a political angle in it. My wife and I, in writing, have refused Medicare, or else we'll refuse it. I don't think the taxpayer should be paying my health insurance. I'll pay for it.
Right.
And I'm a liberal, but when it comes to finance, I'm fiscally conservative. I'm socially liberal.
So a lot of people will also talk about that. I mean, President Obama's poll numbers, they say, are indicating of the economy, but you gave some very positive aspects of the economy. So I guess why that is, because, again, there's a lot of, we've had people come on my show, frankly, and say things like, President Obama is going to declare martial law and not leave and take a third term. And I don't believe that. I wonder if you could talk a bit about how that's not going to happen. And President Obama, I mean, is he not as bad as people think, or is he not? Just if you could talk a bit about, there's a lot of hatred.
There's a whole cottage industry out there demonizing Barack Obama.
Right.
He is not one of the great presidents in American history so far, but it simply has been. It's wrong. It was wrong when people demonized Bush. There were huge disagreements between Reagan and the Democrats, huge disagreements between Johnson and Kennedy and the Republicans, but nobody walked around saying they weren't legitimate. But 35% of Democrats in 2002 in a poll said that George W. Bush had cheated to become president, that he was illegitimate. And 39% of Republican voters feel that Barack Obama is ineligible to be president of the United States. But that's just bizarre. That's unhealthy. It's wrong. I think the hard left was wrong. I think the hard right is wrong. And I think that it's extremely unhealthy. You can disagree with the guy, and I do. You can criticize the president, and I do. At the same time, whether the president's name is Bush, or whether the president's name is Obama, the president's name is Clinton, the president's name is Reagan, the president of the United States is not singly responsible for everything that happens in the country. And the fact is that the economy is doing much better now. Doesn't mean it's Obama's credit, nor is it Bush's credit when it's involved. On the other hand, I think Obama does get credit for taking some economic stimulus package, was very important and very good, and in retrospect, made money for the United States. In fact, I think that was very good, and the people are still fighting that battle. And I think, especially in the Jewish community, it's really bizarre when people who are, I hear people raving and ranting against the government, And then I asked them what government programs they're on, and they consider themselves entitlements. They think what they get, they're entitled to. But some taxpayer somewhere is paying for their entitlements. And I think our community should really check its privileges once in a while.
All right, that concludes part one of my interview with Dr. David Luchins. You can email me at messiahhour@gmail.com, and you can find episodes of this program on YouTube. Type Messiah Hour with Ari Lewis. And if you'd like to support this program, you can do so by PayPal at israelsportsradio@yahoo.com. Every gift helps. We're looking for $18 or $36. One chai, two chai. Every little bit helps. And part two will come up after this break. This is It Prophecy on IsraelNationalRadio.com.